Identifying and documenting business rules are very important to the database design. Hello everyone, this is Miss Karen. In this module, you will learn about what business rules are and how they influence database design. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to familiarize, identify, and create good business rules. What are business rules? Business rules are a set of approved guidelines or framework within an organization. These are also policies that govern in creating, updating, and removing data in an information processing and storage system. In designing a database, we begin to look at the database requirements, which are basically the business rules. These are some of the examples of business rules. Integrity constraint. In the database world, it has been more common to use the related term integrity constraint when referring to such rules. Integrity constraint refers to maintaining valid data values and relationships in the database. The requirement gathering process is very important, and its results should be verified by the user before the database design is built. If the business rules are incorrect, the design will be incorrect, and ultimately, the application built will not function as expected by the users. An important aspect of any design process is making choices. In database design, for example, you must choose which data to store in the database. You would not necessarily want or need to store every last piece of data the organization might possibly use. The data you finally choose to store and how you decide to store it will be determined by the way the organization uses its data. For example, a hospital may wish to store times of various events to the second, whereas a warehouse requires only the date for any given event. During the database design process, you will need a formal statement of the organization's business rules, and later you will implement the database in a relational database management system. These rules will influence a wide variety of database issues, such as the data you collect and store, the manner in which you define and establish the relationships, the types of information that the database can provide, and the very security and confidentiality of the data itself. Each organization has its own data and information requirements, and each has its own unique way of conducting its business. Therefore, every organization needs its own specific set of business rules. Your job as a database analyst is to identify and understand those rules that govern data, represent those rules so that they can be unambiguously understood by information system developers and users, and implement those rules in database technology. How do business rules are written or presented? It follows the format noun-verb-noun, which is a common structure for business rule, and term-fact-term, which is a formal semantic for this type of business rule template. For example, invoice ID should contain 10 characters only. It should clearly show the branch ID and invoice number. The noun there is invoice ID, and the verb is contain, and the other noun is characters. Next example, price must be included in all product labels. Price is the noun, verb is included, and the other is product labels. Scope of business rule. Not all policies in an organization can be a business rule. In the first example, Friday is business casual dress day. Although this is a policy, but it cannot be a business rule since it has no impact on the database. A student may register for a section of a course only if he or she has successfully completed the prerequisites for that course. This can be a good business rule since it contains the transactions processed against the database. These are the characteristics of good business rules. First is declarative. A business rule is a statement of policy, not how policy is enforced or conducted. Next, it should be precise. With the related organization, the rule must have only one interpretation among all interested people, and its meaning must be clear. Next is atomic. A business rule marks one statement, not several. It should be consistent. A business rule must be internally consistent and not contain conflicting statements, and it should be consistent and not contradict with other rules. Next is expressible. A business rule must be able to be stated in natural language, but it will be stated in a structured natural language so that there is no misinterpretation. Next, it should be distinct. Business rules are not redundant, but a business rule may refer to other rules. Next, business-oriented. A business rule is stated in terms business people can understand. And because it is a statement of business policy, only business people can modify or invalidate a rule. Thus, a business rule is owned by the business. In corporate organization, these are examples of business rules. Every employee should be present by 9 a.m. and work 9 hours per day. Every employee must undergo a CPD course in order to get an increment. The company will offer a bonus of half a salary in April. In an academe, let's say in a university, these are the examples of business rules. Every student must have at least 80% attendance in order to sit for an exam. A student has to obtain 50 out of 100 in order to pass a subject. The maximum number of lower grade subjects that a student can have is 3. Departments offer course. A class must have a maximum of 35 students. A course can be taught many times but by only one instructor.